She forgot your birthday. She posted a picture laughing with someone new. She hasn't opened your message in 11 days. And you're sitting there, scrolling through old photos, wondering if you ever meant anything at all. Here's what no one is telling you. You didn't just leave her memory. You left a mark on her nervous system. You're not a name in her phone. You're a reference point in her body. The way she measures calm. The way she defines safety. The way she knows what a man's presence is supposed to feel like. You became her template. And templates don't get deleted. They get compared to. Quietly. Constantly. 4 years. This is going to sting. Some of it will feel unfair. Some of it will make you uncomfortable. But you need every word of it. Not because it'll bring her back, but because it'll bring you back. To yourself. Let's start with the thing most men miss completely. You think the problem is that she doesn't see your value. You think if you just showed her one more time, said the right thing, proved yourself in some undeniable way, she'd finally understand. She'd come back. She'd choose you. That's not the problem. The problem is you're trying to prove you matter. And the very act of trying is what makes her pull away. This is the paradox most men never understand. The harder you push, the smaller you look. Not because effort is wrong, but because desperation has a frequency. And women hear it before you even open your mouth. They feel it in the text you didn't need to send. In the second call after she didn't answer the first. In the paragraph you wrote at 2 a.m. that you told yourself was honest but was really just a plea dressed up as vulnerability. Trying harder doesn't signal love. It signals fear. And fear is not attractive. Fear turns love into pressure. Pressure turns connection into obligation. And obligation is the death of desire. Every single time. Your problem isn't that you don't matter. Your problem is that you don't believe you matter without her confirmation. And that belief is running your entire life right now. If this is hitting close, I want you to stay with me through this whole video. Subscribe. Not for me. For you. Because 3 weeks from now, maybe 2 a.m, when your chest is tight and your hand is reaching for the phone to send something you'll regret, you're going to need a voice that pulls you back. Not a voice that tells you what you want to hear. A voice that tells you the truth. That's what this channel is. Consistent clarity when your emotions try to drag you somewhere stupid. So subscribe. Bookmark this. Come back when the wave hits. It will hit. And when it does, you'll be glad this was here. Now, let me address what you think is happening. You think because she's not texting, she's indifferent. You think because she posted that photo smiling, she never really cared. You think because she moved on fast, you were replaceable. Disposable. Just another chapter she closed without a bookmark. You think silence means she's fine. You think composure means peace. You think because she's not falling apart publicly, she never fell at all. But here's what you don't see. Grief doesn't always scream. Sometimes grief straightens its hair, puts on a good outfit, and goes to brunch. Sometimes grief laughs louder than it used to because the silence at home has become unbearable. Sometimes grief blocks you, not out of hatred, but because seeing your name still makes her hands shake and she's trying so hard to hold herself together that your existence in her phone is a threat to the composure she's built with duct tape and deep breaths. You're reading the surface, but her experience is happening underneath. And underneath is where you still live. Let me explain this in a way that makes it real. There's a concept in psychology that most people oversimplify. It's called imprinting. Not the fairy tale version. The real one. When a woman spends meaningful time with a man who is consistent, grounded, and self-respecting, something shifts in her internal wiring. He becomes a reference point, a standard, not because he was perfect, not because he performed some grand romantic gesture, but because her nervous system learned to associate him with safety, with calm, with a certain quality of presence that she can't easily find again. This isn't manipulation. This isn't ego fantasy. This is psychological patterning. The same way your brain remembers the feeling of a place where you were once deeply at peace, her body remembers the feeling of being near a man who didn't need to prove anything, who was simply solid. And that solidity doesn't erase when the relationship ends. It embeds. It becomes the ruler she holds up to every man who comes after you. And most of them come up short. Not because they are bad men, but because they are not you. And she can't explain why. She just knows something is missing. That's what imprinting does. It doesn't ask permission. It doesn't negotiate with logic. It just sits in the background of every future connection and whispers, "This isn't it. But here's where I need you to grow up. You matter. And she still might not choose you. You matter. And she still might walk away. You matter. And she might block you, miss you, think about you at night, compare every man to you, and still never come back. Because mattering and being chosen are not the same thing. A woman can deeply respect you and still know the relationship wasn't right. She can miss your voice and still recognize that the dynamic was unhealthy. She can love what you represented and still understand that love alone was never enough. Human complexity doesn't give you clean answers. She can miss you and block you. She can respect you and not be ready. She can carry you quietly in her chest for years and still build a life with someone else. Not because you didn't matter, but because mattering isn't the only variable in the equation. And the sooner you stop needing her choice as proof of your worth, the sooner you start living again. Tell me in the comments, what's the hardest part for you right now? Is it the silence? Is it the not knowing? Or is it the fact that you already know and you're just not ready to accept it? Let me tell you what actually stays with a woman. Because it's not what you think. It's not the long texts. It's not the flowers. It's not the Instagram post you tagged her in or the playlist you made at midnight. Those things are nice, but they dissolve. They fade into a blow of every other man who tried to prove something with effort that was really about his own anxiety. What stays is how her body felt around you. Not her mind. Her body. Her nervous system. That's where the real memory lives. And the nervous system doesn't remember words. It remembers sensation. It remembers whether she could exhale when you walked into the room. Whether her shoulders dropped. Whether her jaw unclenched. Whether something in her chest finally went quiet when you sat beside her. That's what stays. Safety. Calm. The feeling of being near a man who was holding himself together. Not performing stability. Actually being stable. A man whose energy didn't shift every time she didn't text back fast enough. A man who didn't need constant reassurance that she still loved him. A man who was emotionally governed, internally anchored, present without being suffocating. That kind of man leaves a mark that goes deeper than memory. It registers in the body like a setting, like a thermostat. And once that setting is established, everything else feels either too cold or too hot. Nothing sits right. Nothing feels like home. Now contrast that with what's common. Attention is abundant. Every woman with a phone has 15 men in her inbox right now willing to say anything to get a response. Compliments are cheap. Availability is everywhere. A man who shows up is not rare. A man who shows up and is also self-governed. That is rare. A man who can hold tension without breaking. who can feel hurt without retaliating, who can want her without needing her to survive emotionally. That is the man she cannot shake. And here's something most men never consider. How you leave matters more than how you loved. A man who leaves clean is unforgettable. No dramatic goodbye. No 4-page letter filled with accusations disguised as honesty. No public display. No smear campaign with mutual friends. No passive-aggressive posts. Just a man who said what he needed to say, meant it, and walked away with his spine intact. That silence you think is killing your chances. That composure you think makes you look like you don't care. That is the loudest thing she's ever heard. Because every other man before you made leaving messy. They clung. They guilt. They bargained. They turned the ending into a courtroom. You walked away clean. And now she's lying in bed wondering how a man who clearly loved her also had the strength to let her go. That contradiction is what keeps you alive in her mind. Not your words. Your restraint. But before you let that inflate your ego, I need you to sit with a harder question. Were you actually that man? Because there's a version of this where you were. And there's a version of this where you're rewriting history to protect yourself. So let's be honest right now. Not the story you tell your friends. The truth. Could she actually exhale around you? Or was she constantly managing your emotions? Was she relaxing in your presence? Or was she monitoring your mood so she knew which version of you she was getting that day? Were you steady? Or were you unpredictable in a way that kept her on edge and called it passion? Were you presence? Or were you noise? Because there's a difference between a man she can't forget because he was safe and a man she can't forget because he was a warning label. Both are unforgettable. Only one is desirable. Let me name what quietly disqualifies a man. Not loudly. Not with an argument. Quietly. In the private conversations women have with themselves. Jealousy that was disguised as care. Inconsistency that was disguised as being busy. Emotional debt. That constant feeling she owed you something because you were nice to her. Performative intensity. Big declarations that weren't backed by daily behavior. Showing up with fireworks on Monday and going silent by Thursday. Making her feel like the center of your universe one week and an afterthought the next. These things don't just push a woman away. They exhaust her. They drain the part of her that wanted to love you. And when a woman is emotionally exhausted, she doesn't leave with anger. She leaves with relief. And that's the kind of leaving that doesn't come back. So I'll ask you again. Were you the anchor? Or were you the storm she needed an anchor from? If you were the anchor, if you genuinely brought calm and consistency and structure and real safety, then what she lost in you is not just a boyfriend. It's an entire ecosystem. She lost the only man who didn't crumble under pressure. She lost the man who could sit in silence without filling it with anxiety. She lost the voice that made hard things feel manageable. She lost the polarity, that specific quality that made her feel feminine because you were so solidly masculine. Not aggressive, not dominant in a loud way, just certain, just grounded. And in your groundedness, she found permission to soften, to stop performing strength, to stop being in control of everything, to just be. She lost the mirror that showed her a higher standard, not because you lectured her, but because you lived at a level that inspired her to rise. Your discipline reflected possibility. Your emotional maturity made her want to grow. Your standards weren't a cage. They were an invitation. That is what she lost. And she knows it. Maybe not today. Maybe not this month. But the moment a man raises his voice at her over something small, she'll feel it. The moment a man can't handle a disagreement without shutting down or exploding, she'll feel the absence of you like a cold draft through an open window. You didn't just give her love. You gave her a standard she can't unsee. And that is why you matter more than you realize. But here is where most men destroy everything they've built. Right here. Right at this point. The point where you realize you mattered. Where you start to understand the depth of what you gave her. Where the psychology clicks and the pattern makes sense. This is the most dangerous moment. Because this is where the ego whispers something lethal. If I mattered that much, she'll come back. And just like that, you've entered the trap. The one that looks like patience, but is actually obsession wearing a calm mask. You start waiting. Quietly. Strategically. You tell yourself you're healing, but you're really just positioning. Every workout becomes about looking better for when she sees you again. Every accomplishment gets filtered through the lens of whether she'll notice. Every day of silence isn't peace. It's a countdown. This is bargaining. This is addiction to outcome. And it will hollow you out from the inside. Let me say this clearly. Your value is not proven by her return. Your value is not confirmed by her reaching out. Your value is not validated by a late-night text that says I miss you. Your value is proven by your standards. By what you refuse to accept. By how you carry yourself when no one is watching and she is never coming back. Read that again. When she is never coming back. Because you need to operate from that assumption. Not because it's necessarily true, but because it's the only assumption that sets you free. Now I need to say something that might feel like a slap. But I say it because I respect you enough to be honest. Most of you aren't heartbroken. You're ego broken. The pain you're feeling right now. That gnawing, relentless ache that won't let you sleep. That isn't love. That's withdrawal. That's your sense of identity collapsing because you built it on her reflection of you. You don't miss her. You miss the version of yourself that existed when she chose you. You miss feeling chosen. You miss the certainty. You miss the relief of knowing someone wanted you. And what you're calling heartbreak is really just the terror of being unselected. The ego cannot tolerate rejection. It will dress it up as love. It will manufacture nostalgia. It will replay the good moments on a loop and edit out every red flag, every argument, every moment you felt unseen. Because the ego doesn't want truth. It wants relief. And what you're chasing isn't her. It's closure. That mythical conversation where everything finally makes sense and you walk away at peace. But let me tell you something about closure. Closure is not a conversation. Closure is not an explanation. Closure is not one more meeting where she finally tells you why. Closure is a gift you give yourself. It's the moment you stop asking why and start asking what now. It's the decision to stop needing her narrative to write your own. She doesn't owe you understanding. She doesn't owe you a reason that satisfies your ego. She owes you nothing. And the sooner that stops feeling like an attack and starts feeling like freedom, the sooner you'll actually begin to heal. Now, let me prepare you for something that will happen. Because it will. There will come a wave. Maybe 3 months from now. Maybe a year. Maybe on a random Tuesday when she hears a song or drives past a place you used to go. And in that wave, she will miss you. Genuinely. Not strategically. Not because she wants something. But because the body remembers and the body doesn't care about logic or pride or who broke up with whom. She will feel your absence like a physical thing. A heaviness in her chest. A hollowness that company can't fill. She'll think about reaching out. She'll draft a message. Maybe even type your name. And then she'll delete it. Not because she doesn't care, but because she's afraid of what happens next. She's afraid that if she opens that door, you'll make it heavy. You'll make it contractual. You'll turn a soft moment into a negotiation. You'll say things like, "So does this mean, and where do we stand, and I knew you still felt something." And just like that, the tenderness hardens. The vulnerability feels punished. And she retreats further than before. This is the warning. If she ever does come back, even in a small way, your instinct will be to grab, to lock it down, to finally get the confirmation you've been starving for. And that instinct will ruin it. Every single time. Because softness cannot survive pressure. And her reaching out is not an invitation to relitigate the relationship. It's a breath. A small, tentative breath. And if you suffocate it with your need for certainty, she will stop breathing in your direction permanently. So what kind of man do you need to become right now? Not cold. Controlled. Not indifferent. Disciplined. There is a massive difference. A cold man feels nothing. A controlled man feels everything and chooses his response deliberately. A disciplined man doesn't text her at midnight. Not because he doesn't want to, but because he respects himself more than he fears the silence. He doesn't check her social media. Not because he's over it, but because he knows that every click is a step backward and he's committed to moving forward. This man has boundaries without speeches. He says no calmly. He says yes deliberately. He doesn't perform healing for an audience. He doesn't post quotes about growth while spiraling in private. He aligns his actions with his values even when his emotions are screaming at him to do the opposite. This man has a mission, not a vague sense of ambition. A real mission. Something that demands his focus, his energy, his time. Something that fills the space she left with something meaningful instead of something desperate. And this man doesn't define himself by who chose him. He defines himself by what he's building, by who he's becoming, by the standard he holds himself to when no one is clapping. That is the man who becomes undeniable. Not because he performed, because he became. Let me give you something concrete. Because insight without action is just entertainment. And you didn't come here to be entertained. You came here because something is broken and you need to fix it. So here is what you do. Starting now. You stop rereading old messages. You stop. You're not going to find the answer in a text from 4 months ago. You're not going to decode her feelings by analyzing the difference between her saying goodnight and her saying night. You're looking for clues in a case that's already closed. Stop. You stop fishing for signs. You stop interpreting her story posts as messages to you. You stop reading into the song she shared. You stop convincing yourself that her silence is a test. It's not a test. It's an answer. And the answer is she's not choosing you right now. Stop. You stop gathering intel through mutual friends. You stop asking how she's doing in that casual tone that fools no one. You stop engineering run-ins. You stop hovering around the edges of her life hoping she'll notice you being fine. She notices. And it doesn't look fine. It looks like surveillance. Stop. You stop lurking on her social media. Every time you open her profile, you're reopening a wound and calling it curiosity. It's not curiosity. It's compulsion. And it's keeping you chained to a version of reality that no longer exists. Stop. Now, redirect. Your body. Train it. Not for her. Not for some fantasy reunion where she sees you and regrets everything. Train because discipline is the antidote to despair. Train because your body is the one thing you have complete control over right now, and control is what you've lost. Move your body every single day until the weight in your chest becomes weight on a bar. Your money. Earn it. Build it. Not to impress anyone, but because financial momentum creates psychological momentum. When your account grows, your confidence grows. When you're building something tangible, the intangible losses hurt less. Not because money heals, but because purpose does. And money is a byproduct of focused purpose. Your environment. Clean it. Simplify it. Throw away the things that remind you of her. Not out of anger, out of clarity. Your space should reflect where you're going, not where you've been. A cluttered room is a cluttered mind. And right now you need every inch of mental clarity you can get. Your circle. Surround yourself with strong men. Not men who let you spiral. Not men who co-sign your obsession. Men who will look you in the eye and tell you to get it together. Men who are building something. Men who hold themselves to a standard that pulls you upward. Brotherhood is not optional right now. It's survival. Your mission. Choose one. I don't care what it is. A business. A skill. A project. Something that scares you a little and demands everything you've got. Something that when you lay in bed at night, your brain is running calculations on the next step instead of replaying her laugh. Your mouth. Close it. No more paragraphs to her. No more explanations. No more voicemails. No more saying things you think are honest, but are really just you trying to control her feelings about you. Silence is not weakness. Silence is the loudest statement a man can make. It says I value my peace more than your attention. Now, some of you are asking a question right now. What if she's testing me? What if this whole thing is a test and I just need to hold on a little longer? I'm going to answer that without romance. If you mattered, she will feel the absence of access to you. Not the absence of your pleading. Not the absence of your late-night confessions. The absence of your calm, stable, self-governed presence. That's what creates the ache. Not your words. Your unavailability. But not strategic unavailability. Real unavailability. The kind that comes from a man who is genuinely busy building a life that doesn't revolve around whether she texts back. This isn't a game. This isn't a tactic. This is self-respect spoken in its clearest language. I will not chase what doesn't choose me. Period. Some of you have a deeper fear underneath all of this. The fear that you're easy to replace. That she'll find someone just like you within a month. That everything you were to her can be duplicated by the next man who shows up with consistency and a decent smile. Let me reframe that. Your worth is intrinsic. It exists because you exist. But your value is constructed. It's built by what you do, who you become, what you stand for, and how you carry yourself through difficulty. If the only thing you brought to her life was availability, then yes, you are replaceable. Availability is everywhere. But if you brought safety and aliveness, if she could be soft and still feel protected, if she could be honest and not be punished, if she felt both calm and electric in your presence, that combination is not replaceable. That is what she'll search for in every man after you and find in none of them. Now, I need to offer one more path. Because not all of you were the good guy in this story. Maybe you were inconsistent. Maybe you were reactive. Maybe you broke trust. Maybe you said things you can't take back. Maybe you were the storm, not the shelter. If that's you, this isn't about getting her back. This is about getting you back. Take inventory. Be honest about what you did. Own it without excuse. Fix it without audience. Not so she sees the change, but so you become the man who who doesn't repeat the pattern with the next woman who trusts you. And if she does come back, if one day she opens that door again, do not punish her. Do not lecture her. Do not act like she owes you for the pain. Assess quietly. Does she bring peace or confusion? Does she bring effort or excuses? Does she bring respect or entitlement? Choose from your center, not from your wounds. You are not the guy she left. You are not the unanswered text. You are not the rebound she replaced you with. You are not the rejection. You are the man who learned, who sat in the fire and didn't run, who rebuilt himself not for applause but for integrity, who became undeniable, not because someone chose him, but because he chose himself. When things finally start making sense, when patterns become clear, come back to Lies Unmasked and tell me thank you. Subscribe. I'll see you in the next one. Keep your spine,